Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got a rather interesting combination of shell, gun, and choke to try out, and I don't know quite what we're going to see from it. It could magically work out surprisingly well, or it could be on the complete other end of the spectrum and be pretty terrible as well. So I don't know, I guess we'll see what we can get from it. But as for the shells I brought out here today, we've got some of the Remington Premier Magnum Turkeys. These ones are the 12 gauge 3.5 inch 2 ounce payload of 5-shot, moving about 1,300 feet per second. Now, Remington turkey loads in general have not been super impressive. They've always technically been good enough, but the nitro turkeys and these Premier Magnum turkeys have not been their strong suit by any means. But who knows, today's combination of stuff might just be what these need to give us an actual solid looking turkey pattern. I don't know, we'll see what happens. But as for the setup we're going to run them through, I brought out my Mossberg 835 Ulti-Mag. This one has a 28-inch barrel on it, but for the choke, we've got a Rectifire Cyclone, but it's a 660 constriction. Now, initially, 660 doesn't seem overly tight for a turkey choke when it comes to 12 gauge, and in a normal 12 gauge, it's not, but these 835s are overboard to a 10 gauge bore size, so the typical turkey choke constriction range is roughly 690, 695 or so when it comes to these 835s. Once you get into the 680s, you're starting to get a little bit on the tighter side, so this 660 is quite a bit of constriction right down here at the end of this barrel. So is that gonna work out and actually help these Remington shells out any? I don't know. It could very well blow it wide open as well, even worse than what they typically already are, going through that much constriction at the end of this barrel. I guess we'll see what happens. But as for today's test, everything is set up the same as usual. The turkey paper's at 40 yards, and I've got the chronograph so we can get our velocity from the shells. So let's get you guys a view of that target and see if this is the magical combination that's gonna work out with these Remington Premier Turkey 5s, or if it's gonna completely ruin our pattern or not. So let's take our shot and see what we get. Alright, so that shell gave us 1286 through the chrono, so we're just a little bit under that 1300 box claim, but still 1286 is very much within the realm of reason for these shells, and that's starting to get up there a little bit in velocity too for a lead 5 shot. I don't know that we're pushing them too fast yet necessarily, but what kind of a pattern did they actually give us down there at 40 yards through that 660 rectifier, and did that combo work out at all? I don't know yet, but let's head down there and see what we got. Alright, well, now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is quite honestly about what I expected to see. Pretty disappointing, but not entirely surprising either, considering what the shell is. Now, yes, we do have a dead turkey here. There are two right at the bottom edge of the brain there, and of course you would have several down through the body there as well. So would you have gotten that turkey? Yes, you would have. But I think 40 yards is pretty well the limit here with this pattern. I definitely wouldn't want to push it any farther than that. Now, overall for the pattern, it's nothing too surprising considering how much we've tested these Remington shells in the past. This is a very typical result for what we usually see out of them, but it is a little bit interesting here as well. If you look at the overall pattern, I think we were pretty much dead centered up on our paper where we wanted to be. But if we look here in the middle, right around that bird's head, which is where our core should be, things are a little bit uneven. You definitely have more pellets over here on the left than you do over on the right, so maybe there's a little bit of a distinct lack of pellets through the core there compared to the edges. Now, looking outside of that, we pretty well covered most of the paper here, and it does get very splotchy and stuff, especially over there on the right edge. Over here off the left edge of that turkey paper, it is a little bit better, although still not tight or anything like that by any means. So the pattern, even though it's centered up pretty good, I don't think it's very evenly distributed on the paper, which even if you have a little bit more of a broad pattern, that's really not what you want. You would ideally want your core of the pattern to be in the center, not off to the left like that. So maybe that 660 at the end of that overboard 835 barrel is just having them hit too much constriction too quickly and kind of blowing the pattern out a little bit. We can't really tell by looking at the edges because the edges of the pattern always kind of scatter all over the place like that, regardless of what choke or constriction we've run them through. But seeing that core that definitely kind of favored off to the left like that, it might just be too much constriction comparative to the bore diameter. And that was one of my concerns coming into it, without a doubt. I was curious to see how that kind of constriction would actually work with these shells at the end of the barrel, and it could have worked worked out, but I don't think it did here today. So once again, pretty typical Remington stuff here. Technically speaking, it's good enough to get the job done out to 40 yards. Is it a combination that I would want to use? No, it's not something that I would ideally want in my turkey setup. So maybe a little bit of a disappointment today, but hey, that's why we test all the different combos we can, because sometimes these little bit stranger or more oddball combinations work out better than we expect. However, this was not really one of them, I don't think. And here's the wad out of that shell. Very typical Remington stuff here. Nothing too special to see. There's nothing stuck down in there. We do have several little pinholes and stuff around the edges of these petals, but these are pretty thin wads overall, so nothing out of the ordinary here. Looks very much like I would expect, so nothing too special to take note of as far as the wad goes. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that pattern right there? Definitely not anything impressive. But did we really expect to see anything impressive when we came into it initially? Probably not, but I wanted to see what a little bit more constriction would do in that 835, and maybe it could have helped these out, but clearly it really didn't make much of a difference, and potentially it even started to hurt our pattern a little bit with how it might have actually moved our core around just a little bit there in our pattern. Definitely not ideal, not really what you want to see. So not the ideal setup, and definitely not something that I would want to use. But I guess leave all your thoughts down in the comments. Is it about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these Remington Premier Magnum Turkey shells? And if so, what kind of results have you seen from them? Is that a pattern or a combination that you would hunt with? Or is it just a little bit too broad and all over the place for you? And what other shell or choke combos do you want to see with either those Remington Premier Magnum Turkeys or that Rectifire 660 choke in that 835? Let me know all that down below. But overall here, it's just nothing too surprising for a Remington shell. I think it's pretty realistic, and that's probably what we should pretty much expect to see across the board with most of them. So nothing unusual as far as the Remington shell goes here today, but I was hoping for a little bit better. So I guess with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description down below if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.